Well, hello everybody, and welcome again to the Weirdly Magical podcast with Jen and Lou. And I'm Louise Eddington. I'm an astrologer and author of 2 astrology books, The Complete Guide to Astrology and Modern Astrology. And I help people create a life of their dreams.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jen Duchenne. I'm an Akashic guide and healer. What else? Oh, I'm the creator of the Illuminating Journey cards, spiritual teacher and guide, and I help my clients get more of what they want.
Coolio. And today we're going to be looking at the full moon. We're recording this just before the Pisces new moon, though, so things are kind of a bit confusing because we have so much Pisces energy. But the full moon coming up on March the 28th at 7:48 p.m. London time at 8 degrees of Libra. We'll be coming back to that. But first we're going to look at our cards. So Jen, what did you pull?
All right, so I pulled 2 cards because a number card came up, which is the 6, which I think is actually very interesting because 6 is about love of the family, love of your home environment, love of the local environment, the place that you dwell in. And so finding that balance, finding a way to be kind of in love with your life and what there is. So nourishing your life. And then I pulled a portal, soul portal, and it's the 34. And I feel like this one came up recently, but I don't remember when. But what I find interesting about this is this energy of moving towards the wild within us, into that space that goes beyond what is cultured, what is controlled. So it's a leaving of the old environment, and has a lot of different symbols that connect to it.
Including an owl.
Oh, that's right. And we have there's all the elements: fire, water, air, and the pyramids is very much a recognition of our own longing, our own wisdom, our desire to be expressed in a new way into the wild. And in fact, this part here is from a piece that's from the St. Nectan's Glen in England. I took that picture when I was there.
So when I see this card, I always look at the figure, and it looks to me like this peacock cape, and the 2 points coming up from here look like kind of like the scorpion claws, like this. So it's kind of got that Scorpio thing to me, which is very deep female psyche kind of energy. So yeah, scorpions are much maligned, you know. Every creature has a purpose.
Right, like the snake, etc. Like those are part of connecting us to our deeper selves. And yes, the figure is very much, to me, it always feels like this figure is super determined. It's like there's a implacability about the figure, like that, going towards that thing that is away from kind of being controlled.
Yeah. And the fire behind it, really, behind the figure, saying burn that off the past. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, interesting. And interesting that the fire was there, because I picked a very fiery card, which is the 6. There's that 6 again, the 6 of Wands, which is the victory card. But this really is about a win that touches you at a very intuitive and spiritual level. Jupiter and Leo, all the wands come together. So this is really about spirit, bringing spirit into the center, and bringing it into that creative fire that Jen was talking about with the 6 as well. So and this is big creativity, and it's a theme that's coming up for me with all my work with my clients and in my membership, where I do videos for them. I just keep talking more and more about this is such an opportunity to really kind of come into your creative self-expression and your creative fire, and really to create something that you really want in life, in all areas of your life. So there you go. Lovely card.
Right. So it feels like all the both the cards, and I think what we're going to be talking about is the sense of being expressed in a way that it's almost like you won't be held back. Like there are things to be done, and there's this kind of
The only thing that can hold you back is you, I think, really. That's basically it.
well,
If you
yeah.
resist the energy.
Right. So it's stepping into it, but I think it's also trusting that it's possible. And the more that people around you are feeling that and doing that, the easier it becomes to step into.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just kind of laughing though, because talking about I've been suggesting something to my members for like 2 weeks, and they're so resistant to it. But anyway, I'm thinking, well, if you don't take action, the change won't come.
Right. So that's a really good point that we have opportunity,
Yeah.
but opportunity is not going to force us to change, that we have to take action. And what I found in my own experience and with my clients as well, students, etc., is that when you understand that it's okay to fail, but to go towards what you desire and get kind of embrace it. It's so hard to have a different experience if you're not embracing what you desire. And that's certainly been my story. So if I look at like, yeah, I really want this, and then there's a part of me that goes, oh, I'm not sure, is it going to be scary? Like, do I have to give something up? Nothing happens. But when I go, you know what, I can really start feeling myself moving towards that, then things start to meet me on the way.
And the outcome might not look how you thought it was, but at least you're moving towards it. So
Right. Well, I think the whole thing is the outcome is never going to be what you think it is.
no,
And
exactly.
and if there's a problem or an issue, then you'll just deal with it like you deal with everything else. Like, it's kind of weird how we imagine, oh, something could go wrong and that stops us when, hey, things are supposedly going wrong
Just
all
go.
the time.
In fact, I will get to the full moon in a minute, but just before we recorded, I was taking a lovely Pisces salt bath, Epsom salt bath. So I was actually late for Jen because I got carried away dream world, and I was reading my friend Jacob's creative cure book, and he was talking about a friend who every time something went wrong just said, "Oh, course correct."
Exactly. Exactly. Because that's an illusion. Who says it's going wrong? Just because
Exactly.
you have
Yeah.
a fixed idea about what was supposed to be doesn't make it wrong.
So she says she would just go, "Oh, course correct," and carry on.
Right. Right.
Anyway, anyway, this well, and speaking of creating and things, of course, Libra is a very creative sign, and as I said, this Libra full moon is on March the 28th, which is a Sunday, at 7:48 p.m. In London. So I think that's 11:48 a.m. Pacific and something else times. Anyway, and the full moon itself is at 8 degrees of Libra. We're 8 degrees and 18 minutes, which means it's an opposition to the sun at 8 degrees and 18 minutes of Aries. And we've got so many eights in this chart. But with the sun, we have Chiron and Venus. And Chiron, the shaman or healer, is sandwiched between Venus and the sun, and this is only 2 days after the Venus superior conjunction, which is known as the Venus star point. So this is really activating this Venus star point, which will take us through the next 9.5 months of birthing something, because the Venus cycle between conjunctions is the length of a pregnancy. And so this full moon basically is on the Venus star point. So that's lovely that those three are at 8 degrees of Aries together, the Sun, Chiron, and Venus. Then at 8 degrees Taurus, which is a Venus ruled sign also. Oh, and Venus rules Libra, where the moon is. We have Uranus, and then we also have Vesta at 8 degrees of Virgo. And all these planets at 8 degrees are making this interesting pattern that looks a little bit like a trapeze. It reminds me of those things where you used to make something with string with your fingers, and I can't remember what that was called. That Chinese something or other, wasn't it? Anyway, it makes
Puzzle.
no. Oh, it doesn't matter. So we've got a series of adjustments from the full moon because we've got two quincunx aspects, one from the moon to Uranus and one from the Sun, Chiron, and Venus to Vesta. So it's both a fulfillment full moon and there's these adjustments that we'll kind of look to. And there's various other things going on. One other thing I will mention though is that Mars goes out of bounds on March the 21st. So he is acting out of character. He will have been out of bounds for a week on this full moon. And 2 days before, on the same day that Venus and the Sun meet in Aries, Mars meets the North Node in Gemini at the same point that Venus met the Sun on June the 2nd last year, June the 2nd, 2020. So we've got a real kind of activation between Mars, which is our anima or male energy, and Venus, which is the animus or female energy. So we'll look at all of that too. Okay, Jen, numbers. Let's have a look. All that eights, six.
Right. All those eights, so powerful.
Mm.
So we'll look at the date. It's March the 28th. So we are in an 8 universal month this month.
Ah.
And so there's your additional 8. So, and this is the 6 of 8 moons, pretty much at 8 degrees since October. So the 6 months of this birthing or this kind of bringing us into the space. So the 28 is a 1. So 2 plus 8 is 10, is 10. 1 plus 0 is 1. So 1, a new beginnings. It's also very much about us trusting our own guidance or doing what's right for us. Many of us have trusted others and then felt betrayed, etc. And so now we're being kind of encouraged by the universe to, listen inward, listen to what is true for us and make our own discernment, make our own judgment and choices. I think that speaks to our cards, etc. So there's that. The other thing that's interesting is it makes it a 9 universal date, and all these 8s are actually almost 9s. So there is that ending part that comes with it. We have new beginnings, we have endings. We are activating the 8, 9, and 10 here, as well as the 8 is about success, and it's about reaching a certain equilibrium, you could say, about leadership or who we are or what choices you're taking. It's about the focus of doing the thing you need to do to grow. Like people with who are very good at sports or winners at sports often have 8s because that's about persistence.
Mm.
It's about doing things over and over again until you get it right, not giving up. It's just be focused on what is it you're intending as opposed to here's an obstacle in my path. So I think this moon is speaking to that through the numbers, is that there are things to be done. It's not necessarily going to be easy, that it's going to be rewarding. So you just have to keep at it, keep focusing on what is true for yourself, as opposed to giving up because it's hard work or that you're not getting the agreement of others. what they say about leadership is that to be a leader, first you decide to do something. You may pioneer, and that's the one, the 28th, the one. You pioneer, you focus, you choose something that may be unpopular. And then at some point, somebody else joins you, and then there may be other people, and then that creates leadership as opposed to, rebellion. And I think that's really interesting that Mars is shooting up. Mars is shooting out of the draconian bowl, breaking that whole thing out of bounds at a 14, which is the 5. And that's our year in a 5 years. So it's about being very expressive with our sense of liveliness, our passion, our libido, our expression of wanting to be fired up about something and leading the way. Again, coming back to what do you want to create? What do you want to lead with? How do you want to lead your life?
Mm. Yeah, I find it very interesting that Mars is he goes out of bounds, and then just 5 days later leaves the draconic bowl, passes the North Node, and that the fact that on the day he passes the North Node, or conjuncts the North Node, he's at that Venus star point from June the 2nd last year. And that's kind of before the, for many of us, at least in the Western world, before the pandemic really hit. I think we had locked down before that, but if we look back to that point and then to what came after in this 9.5 month period between June the 2nd and March the 26th, it got a lot more virulent, or whatever is the word. But here we have Mars. Mars last year went retrograde in his own sign of Aries, and so he's taken a while to move to Gemini. And when in a Mars retrograde, they're very rare. In his own sign, that is in Aries, and here he is coming out. He's leading the way, as Jen said, the pioneer, and Mars and Aries are both representing pioneering action. I am kind of energy, here I am kind of thing, and he's leading the way out of there. But he's changed, I think, if we look back at last year, that the fact that Mars had his retrograde, and the fact that he is coming out of the draconic bowl at the point of the Venus star point, which is a very powerful point of humanity. The Venus star point makes a 5-pointed star, which is like the Vitruvian Man, and the head, the arms, the legs. It's a very human cycle and figure, the Venus star point. I keep learning more and more and more about it. It kind of feels like Mars is changing, and it is in the sign of the changeling, really, which is Gemini, and the sign of thinking differently. And that North Node is all about changing your thoughts, really, to change your life. And then everything else in the chart is very Venusian too. The moon is in a Venus ruled sign, Libra. And then Venus herself is conjunct the sun in the sign of Mars, Aries, but next to Chiron, the shamanic healer. So it feels, and then we've got these adjustments. So we've got Uranus at 8 degrees in Taurus, which is really the sign, which is another Venus ruled sign, which is about values and self-worth and the physical manifestation of energy. And so that's very Venusian. I kind of think that Venus has the edge in all this energy, and Mars is taking his lead from the divine feminine. That's kind of how it feels to me. He's been softened. He's like leading the way out of this confinement of the draconic bowl to change. But to my mind, he's saying we're changing our unhealthy relationship dynamics, And when I mean, say, unhealthy relationship dynamics, that can mean to your partner, it can mean to friends, it can mean to money, it can mean to your creativity. It's your relationship to anything other that is not you. So I think Mars, I think we're going to hear a lot about Mars, acting um, like a madman kind of thing because he's out of bounds and kind of released from that confinement. But I kind of think Mars has been changed because of those reasons. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's certainly we're at a massive point in history in terms of movement for the planetary bodies as well as humanity. And
Mm.
if you think about this, to me, is there's the key to um, kind of escaping from an old way of being, which we have been under for thousands of years. And so this idea, it's almost like the picture I see, I guess, with the Akashic Masters are showing me is like a relay race. And for those of you who don't know what a relay is, it's in partnership because they're usually what 4 or 5 people, and everyone stands at a point waiting to get the little, I don't know what that thing is, but you pass it on to the next person.
The
So
baton.
the baton, that's right. You're passing the baton on to the next person. So you're working together. You each have to run as fast as you can so that you can work in tandem with your group. And so this is how it feels like to me when I look at this. It's like everything is working cohesively in order to help us make this absolutely gigantic move into a whole different way of being. And if you think about it in terms of from a human scale, when we're making huge leaps, we actually do things at tiny movements. It's not like, we're not leaping over mountains every day. We're taking small little shifts in our thinking, shifts in our responses, opening our hearts in different ways. So that helps us all move forward because we're moving together as a body, as a group. And so we are aware of our own race as well as the group. So I agree that with Mars is it change. But he or it is not just change of how we look at our libido, how we look at our desires, which has been, there's been this whole thing that we've been under this oppression of desire, that desire is a bad thing, that we got to, force it out of ourselves. We've got to beat ourselves up so we don't have desire. And yet things do not change, things don't happen without desire. So we really do need that activation. I was just looking at the node, with the nodes being at 12 degrees. I find it interesting that with the Gemini node, the North node there, 12, that's a 3. And then the 14 is a 5. So those are the two numbers of the year, the 3, the 21, and the 5. So it's very interesting that those two are being activated, that kind of playfulness, that learning, wisdom through learning and through self-expression is where we're being guided. And I also agree that the Venus thing here is very much leading the way, because when you think about the great mother or the great creator, it comes very much from a place of expansion, of love, of spaciousness. Like I have space to really explore who I am and take my time. And then once I know what it is, I can move very quickly.
Mm. I do, seeing as you were talking about the where the nodes are and Mars are, I do want to mention that the nodes have now moved past the halfway point of their journey through Sagittarius and Gemini. They moved into these signs on May the 5th, 2020, and they will leave these signs on January the 18th, 2022. So they are halfway through physically, and so that's really also a tipping point as well. If we, 2020 was a pivotal year, as we clearly realise, but But for many reasons, you know, it was not just the pandemic, it was everything. Everything has started to shift. We entered 2021 with this mutable Grand Cross, which is pretty much still active, if because Vesta is still square the nodes and Mercury will square the nodes and Pallas Athena is coming up to square the nodes. We've still got this shift, and it's all moving towards that North Node, which is our where we long to move towards. And you know, yes, a lot of it was caused by the pandemic, but I don't know about you, Jen, but personally, I've made a lot of changes in my life for the better, perhaps brought on by outer conditions, but also a lot of it brought about by me following the nudges of what the energies are telling me. So everything's gradually changing. Values have shifted, which is the Venus story really. Our values have got more what really has meaning, what really matters to us. This journey of Vesta in Virgo has been very interesting, and she's connected by on that lovely, unusual pattern, saying, and she's in this adjustment aspect to the Sun, Chiron, and Venus in Aries, saying, adjust who I am a little bit more. We're constantly kind of changing and shifting who we are and how we respond and react to the outer world, because Aries is a very reactive sign. I always think of with it being the first sign, I always think of Aries as kind of like the little toddler who wants what it wants and wants it now and kind of has a little tantrum if it doesn't. That's the shadow of Aries. But we're being asked to adjust that and kind of heal that, perhaps that reactivity and that forcefulness and that pushing, that day energy that we've got that's valued, the kind of action, hierarchical day energy over I'm trying to avoid saying male and female because it's just the energies, it's not men and women, but over the more receptive, kind of feeling, intuitive energy. And I've definitely felt the shift towards the balancing of that, which is the 8 too. So, and the Libra's all about balance too.
Right. Right. So there is a lot of that. And I think we certainly did talk about it last year and the
Mm,
year before about this idea of entering a space where we looking at our values. I've certainly made adjustments too, just being less interested in compromising. That doesn't mean I don't want to get along with people or do things that are good for all. But I do believe that one of the reasons we've had so much pain for so long was because we did submerge our desires,
mm,
and that made us all very irritable. Like when you can't have what you want because, I don't know, you're afraid that somebody's going to be annoyed
mm,
or you're going to get in trouble or whatever. It can make you like a toddler. Like, you know, the whole point, the difference between a out of balance toddler and a toddler who's happy is being told that it's okay to have your desires. It doesn't mean you always get what you want, but certainly that you can pursue your desires and that they're encouraged and welcomed, that your expression in our world is welcomed, is very different from being told to shut up and who do you think you are, and being squashed and you need to behave in a certain way, or I can't love you. I think this to me is what this is all about. And I certainly hear that in the records. It's this willingness to find that balance. You know, the 8 also represents bringing heaven to earth. And this is about more of what we're talking about, this idea of being at peace with who we are and where we are. So
mm,
we're not trying to force our way into things, but we're getting more comfortable by going, this is what's true for me. So if you don't like it or you don't want to go ahead with me, that's fine, but I'm going to do it anyway, as opposed to, oh, let me conform because otherwise I'll be alone. So I think for me, that's been the huge difference, is just letting go of a lot of those kind of strictures and structures around how I need to function in the world. Certainly a softening for me. This has been, and I think that is very much, putting the two energies together, the intuitive energy, which is kind of more the Venetian energy of knowingness and willingness to take responsibility for yourself. And then the action, what are you doing out there in the world, which is more of the Martian energy. And so, yeah, I think that's really important. And it is fascinating that the eight and the Libra are working on the same team, you can say, because Libra is about finding balance. And so much of our understanding of what balance is or justice is just complete bullshit. Like it just isn't, you know.
Yeah.
It's like when we going like, well, that's not fair, and all of those things. Like, yeah, we're saying those things because we're so angry and frustrated. But the truth is that when we go, oh, they're doing it because they want to, or that's the consequence or the experience they're having, has nothing to do with me. I get to make my own choices. I get to decide. Is a very different energy of being in balance.
Mm. Now, the positive side of the Aries and the Mars energy, or another positive side, is clarity. It's very straightforward, very clear, Aries and Mars. And, the Venus star point in Aries 2 days before, with Mars at that other star point, with Venus being values, is getting very clear about what your values are, because then you're operating from a place of strength and real self-love, because you're clear on what your core values are. And as Jen was saying, you don't have to have the same desires and values as I do, but to get clear on your own desires and values, then you can see whether you're going to move forward together, or move forward alone, or move forward with somebody else in your life. But I can't remember. I was going to say something else there about that. I'm finding that, and it's my own experience too, that people are not always very clear what their desires are. They're not very clear what really fulfills them, and gives them pleasure and gives them creative boost, because we're so used, especially as women, I must say, we're so used to doing what society tells us we should do, or what we think we should do, or what our culture's brought us up to do. I think this Aries, especially with Chiron, the key to healing being right there, tucked between Venus desires and values and the Sun, is kind of saying, get clear on what you desire. What are your core values? What gives you pleasure? What really fills your boat? So
Right. And I think that is an important aspect when you think about the sun kind of lighting up the energy, or bringing that energy of balance with the moon onto Chiron, that healing aspect, or that opportunity to let go of the poison and to heal yourself through getting clear about your desires, by naming them, by experiencing things, asking questions, getting curious, really peeling back the layers, instead of being like, it's one thing for us to say, well, I don't know what I want. And many of us say that, and it's true. But how do we get there? We're not going to get there by keep repeating, I don't know what I want, right? That's just not going to work. It's just not going to give us the revelation that we seek, so we can take action. So I do find it interesting that Vesta, which is the keeper of the flame, is across there in the Virgo, right? She's in Virgo.
yeah.
And like that heat, that kind of bringing that heat to the surface of, I need to be uncomfortable. And I think that was the purpose of the coronavirus in so many ways. I mean, we were very uncomfortable. It's been very painful for so many people, dealing with death, dealing with restriction, dealing with things unknowns, that have created really showing us who we are, the character of who we are when we're dealing with tough things. And, there is a part of us that wants to go, well, I don't want to deal with it. And here we have all this energy that is burning up inside of us, that is forcing us to see what we haven't seen, forcing us to make choices that we may not have made, forcing us to speak out. And that to me is what this is all about. As we come into this healing opportunity, we are uncomfortable because we need to heal, and we need to get curious about how we heal, and we need to be involved in our own healing by speaking and expressing, however you do it. That seems to be a key here.
And Aries is the first sign. We do have to remember that. So it's the astrological new year. So this is a new begin. I always find my New Year's kind of intentions. I don't do resolutions, but intentions feel stronger at the Aries ingress. And this Aries, like everything in the last couple of years, really is more powerful than the regular Aries ingress, because we have that Venus star point. We have this full moon coming right after the ingress of the sun into Aries. And then everything's moving towards that North Node, which is our longing, where the future, where we long to move towards. So it's a very, very powerful period, this whole for setting intentions, for saying, I am going to start taking steps to create my desires. I'm going to get clear on my desires. So, yeah.
Right. And I think too, this idea of the nodes, moving away from that religious based thinking, right, which we've talked about, it doesn't necessarily mean religion, but it means a very structured way of behaving or treating your desires and the divine. Because if you look at religion or thinking that is rigid, it's about everyone has to conform, everyone has to kind of give their energy of desire to one thing that someone else wants. So it's kind of giving your power away. So when you reignite this energy of like, oh, this is what I want, and I'm going to put that energy into going for it, as opposed to holding myself back, which is what many of us have been doing. We've been using all our energy just to not be who we are,
Yeah.
which is exhausting. So I think that's really what this is about, is this idea of fulfilling our dharma, or our desire, or our potential, because we have potential. Whether we reach it or not is up to us, and how we reach it is up to us. And this chart to me feels very loving. It feels very embracing, very much a birthing through that gentle water of discovery. We are for those who follow the natural wheel of the year, we enter the beginning. Aries is the beginning. It is the spring. We have the what do you call it? The equinox on the 20th, I believe. So this is the time that we plant the seed, what has been germinating in us since October, November, December. The desire that's been stirring now wants to be activated, wants to be planted so it can grow. So it makes sense that we feel this way. And I also wanted to mention that Pluto, I noticed that Pluto is at 26, which is an 8 as well. And that is the only one left now in Capricorn from that whole, when we started last year with so many planets in Capricorn just over a year ago in January. So it's very interesting, the shift that, that Pluto is now with that 26, with that number of really doing the work, releasing the thing that has been, the shame within us, the unspoken desire, so the dying of that part of ourselves, the part that has been a conformist, and moving into this, going like, it's interesting, all this energy on this side of the chart, which is all about the the activation of the dream and the expanding of the expression within ourselves.
Mm.
What does that look like? Taking an adventure. Remember, we talked about the year. The 5 is about going on an adventure with the 3, the creative expression, loving yourself into expressing and doing the things that your true self desires.
I also find it interesting that Ceres is at 13 degrees of Aries. That um, one of my favorite numbers in the zodiac, because she was very much part of that Capricorn cluster that started off 2020. She was at the same point as Saturn and Pluto and Mercury and the Sun on January the 12th, 2020. And she is quietly moving forward, bringing her healing opportunity or energy, I kind of think. And somebody's on our roof. This is very weird. So she's at 13 degrees, which is the number of the divine feminine, right, Jen? Yeah.
Right. Right. So that's very true that she is playing this role. Like, the 13 is this also that Plutonian kind of energy of, and Uranian energy of death and rebirth. So
Mm-hmm.
this idea of stepping into this, what will you rebirth in this warm pool of new beginnings? It's almost like we're being reborn, all of us collectively in these waters. So what are we going to do, knowing we have this opportunity to do something new, to be born and release the things that, like, we're going, like, okay, our souls are going, or our minds and our hearts are going, I used to live like this, I used to do this, and I don't want it anymore. I want something different. And when I say I used to and all those things, I'm not necessarily talking about physical things, although sometimes those do have an impact. But it's really the idea of what you want and how you make that happen through your thoughts, your actions, your heart opening. That's super important. And I just noticed also that Pallas Athena, who was kind of the head of the curve now, is at 6 Pisces, and 6, again, that number that came up, which is about this loving the community you're in, loving your life, the place you're in, and how can you make that juicy, using your wisdom to make that a juicy, amazing experience. So if there's a problem, how do you deal with the problem so that you're expressed, right? Instead of keeping quiet or moaning about it to your friends and not doing something different. Like, take the action to change the experience you're having where you're having it is really important.
Ah, do you know, I don't have loads more to say about this. I mean, there is an almost exact trine between Eris, still at 23 degrees of Aries, and Juno, who is at 23 degrees of Sagittarius, who was really one of the last energies to cross the, well, she was the last planetary body to cross the South Node and enter that draconic bowl. And I always think of that as Venus flowered, really. Juno, and June, she named the month too, which is also a month. Uh, a kind of very spring-like energy, but she is about our sacred marriage with all our relationships, really. And she's also at that Sagittarius of leaving behind those rigid views, that dogma of not just religion, as Jen said, of all these old dogmatic beliefs that we've held under thousands of years of patriarchy, really. It's all shifting, it's changing. Eris brings that element of chaos. It's at that 23 degrees again, which is that chaos magic number, which is so human and such a powerful number that I think has been changing us in major, major ways over the last few months. So that's an interesting little extra in the chart to my mind too.
Right. And that I think there will be lots of unexpected opportunities to change. And so we should keep our eyes and hearts open instead of going like, if we always think that, oh, good things don't happen to me or something like that, that I've always got to suffer and struggle, then keeping our ears and heart open because maybe this is an opportunity. Here we have an opportunity to go, oh, I used to think this, but what if I think something different? What if I take a different choice? There's definitely lots and lots of openings in this chart, this opportunity to flower. It's like you're planting a seed and
Mhm.
you're saying, you know, my seeds usually don't really grow, like the little flower hardly grows. And now it's like I'm putting all this love and attention, and there's the possibility that this thing can flower into the most amazing thing. I didn't even know I didn't even know this flower existed. That's kind of the feeling that I get when I look here at this chart. I
Mm.
also wanted to mention two things that are sticking out in the number wise is that Saturn is at 11 and Jupiter is at 22 degrees of Aquarius. So those are both master numbers.
Mm.
And remembering that this is a time of mastery. This is a time when the kind of the door is open and we can enter this place, kind of like my card and your card, that idea of entering that field of going, this is this place I'm going into. This is this opportunity, and I'm going to step in and I'm going to, you know, decide where I'm living and what I'm building and what it's going to look like. And I'm going to give it the attention, the love, and the clarity so I can truly, you know, if I'm planting, if I'm doing something, I can focus on it in the way that has meaning to me, because we're building a bigger thing right now. We're beginning the seeds, we're laying the land. We've moved from the place of the open spaces of everything's available to now beginning to design and root the energies in. What do we want to take forward? Because our actions now and our choices now, our beliefs now are the ones that are laying down the land going forward. And I think that the Saturn and Jupiter are speaking to that idea of Saturn's going, okay, this is your time to really get the system down, to really think about where you want to put your attention. And Jupiter's going, you know, design this. You have the expense to design an amazing thing, right?
Mm.
So put some attention to what you're designing. Don't just jump in and do things. Go, I'm getting clear about what I want. So I'm going to start figuring out, how does this design work? You don't have to start building the minute you get an idea. You do want to build, but you want to be able to go, okay, what is it? What's the focus here? What is the thing that I desire to experience within myself and with the people around me?
So interesting that you mentioned that about the two master numbers with Saturn and Jupiter, because remembering that, the two of them met at 0 Aquarius on the winter solstice, December the 21st, 2020. And interestingly, Jupiter at 22 degrees Aquarius is entering the shadow of his retrograde, because he will go retrograde at 2 Pisces on June the 20th, and then station direct on October the 18th at 22 Aquarius. So he's at that activating master number degree that he's going to come back to in October. So, pay some attention to what's happening now, because it's going to come back in October, um, as Jupiter returns there. And that's in terms of all the things Jen was saying about, expansion and growth of this Aquarian ideal and vision of what we're building. So I just found it, I was like, oh yeah, Jupiter goes direct at that point. What an interesting thing, because I don't normally look at the shadow period of Jupiter, because it's not quite as the same as Mercury. It doesn't, things don't start to go wonky, but it's that point where he turns direct. So it's an important degree. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. because this is the time to bring those ideas into being.
Mm.
This is a really important time on so many levels. I think, Lou, you mentioned that this is not just a regular time period. It's not just a regular New Year and Aries, etc. This is, monumental.
Mhm.
And what's monumental is also very exciting, but it's also very emotional in the sense like here we have an opportunity to do things differently. That is truly tap into what we desire. Take the time to really feel what's true for you, as opposed to, well, I got to decide and I've got to get on with it. Um, Really start to think about what are you planting? What are you creating? What is it that you're desiring to feel and express? And use the tools you have, the morning pages, the sitting in meditation, walking in nature, time by yourself, even if you have a busy life and a lot of people around you, take time to sit with that. Even in the bath, I find the bath extremely useful for just sitting in that space of being and feeling and allowing without trying to stop myself, so that I can get to the next picture, so I can hold myself in that space of feeling safe, feeling loved,
Mm.
and just echoing the messages that we're receiving from the planetary bodies, what we're receiving from the energies that are coming in right now.
And yes, sit and think, and I'd suggest actually starting to write a list of, think a things that are self-care and give you pleasure and self-love, and also your desires. I know it's something I keep repeating, but the energy is telling me that, is this is a time to really do that, to get that clarity around it. And there's something about not just only sitting and thinking about it, but putting that pen to paper and writing them down, so you could maybe make a pretty picture of them and put them on your wall. It helps you to kind of focus, which is that Aries, on where you want to go and what you really desire to create. So,
Right. It helps you to actualize. And I think, thinking about things is just wonderful, but also taking action daily towards that. Right. So whether it's creating the picture, whether it's actually putting the plan, what are the key elements that you need?
mm.
It's not fixed yet, but you're putting it out there to see what's the response, what do you need, asking questions,
Yeah,
setting that.
correct, as we said. Yes.
That's correct. Exactly. You want to be on the journey. You don't want to just be waiting. So, if you can think about being on the journey and having to decide what is true for you through your daily experiences, and a great way to do it is when you are encountering things in the day and thinking like for me yesterday, I'd gone to the bank. I had to go do something there. And it was just like these little irritations of things like, oh, you can't do this. Now you can't do this. And it's just like stupid little things. But I just made myself be amused about it, because it's just like, yeah, I could get really irritated about those things. But, I don't want to be in that place. I want to be in a place where good things are happening to me because I'm available to them. And I'm available to them because I'm letting the universe know that I'm not going to get irritated about stupid things. Doesn't matter. I'm going to laugh about it. And then when I went to the supermarket, I wanted a roasted chicken, and I stood at the place, and they had just one lonely chicken that had probably been there for a long time, and I was kind of standing there going like, I don't know what to do, and what should I do? And then the guy came up with a trolley with like a
Lots of
whole bunch of new chickens. I was like, yeah, see, the universe is showing me there's abundance. I can pick whatever chicken I want, right?
Oh, all right. Should we move on to the symbols?
We should, but we didn't do our little ad for our.
Terrible. Told you Neptune is just squaring at my sun, so Jen has to remind me about everything. So yes, our swag is available from Teespring, and that's Weirdly Magical on Teespring. The link is also on our Facebook page, which is Weirdly Magical. So we have all kinds of swag: t-shirts, long sleeve tops, sweatshirts, sleeveless tops. There's mugs. There's a plethora of choices, so you could wear your weirdly magical swow swag and do the swow howl. That was swell hag.
How?
Swell howl with us. Anyway, and and we also have a Patreon, patreon.com/weirdly magical. So for $3 a month, or you can pick your own contribution, you help to support us and the running costs of the podcast and help us to continue to provide this for you. I think that's it. Oh, and likes on YouTube, Weirdly Magical, Facebook, Weirdly Magical, Instagram, Weirdly Magical. Come follow us. Come, give us likes, give us claps, whatever. All those things. And now we're moving to the symbols. So let's do mine first this time. So we go to Libra 9. We always go up. And so the Chandra symbol is a cook fixing vegetable soup from a myriad of ingredients. If variety is spice, here we have the ultimate gourmet dish. Inner necessity dictates that you draw eclectically upon the broadest, most fantastic range of factors and facets you can possibly expose yourself to. By becoming conversant with myriad voices, you find the subtle edge between the universal self and your own evolving center. As you spread yourself thin and keep extending to the far horizon, the synthesis or blend grows richer and finer all the while. It is only by blending what has previously been polarized that you can begin to make your way. To be here for the changes and the mix is everything. To define and limit is nothing. You simply have no taste whatsoever for prepared, pre-digested worlds. It has to be dazzlingly inventive and spontaneously revelatory to have any currency in the realm where we are all seeking to bust loose, and we take what we find, throw it together, and discover that everything is part of the same thing. And this realization fans a pathway beyond the known altogether. I love the idea of creating a soup in
Yes,
your
indeed.
life from the ingredients you already have.
Exactly. I think that speaks to a lot of what we have talked about.
Yeah,
And then, oh, I think I got the wrong one. I got the 8 instead of the 9. Do you have it?
I do. Do you want me to read it? Libra 9, the Sabian symbol, 3 old masters, meaning like the paintings. Why do they call them masters? But anyway, hanging on the wall of a special room in an art gallery. The need to return to source during a confused search for new value in a chaotic society. There are always moments which focus in our minds the longing to reground ourselves in the great achievements of the past. The number 3 suggests completeness. Esoteric traditions speak of the threefold soul, or of 3 fundamental rays of power, of love, wisdom, and of intelligence in action. Meditation, in its deepest sense, is a return to source, an attempt to re-identify oneself with one's archetype or essence of being, which is triune in manifestation and now, after confused but challenging wanderings. To identify oneself consciously with this essence. The finer forms of one's culture provide the means to do this. The great moments of the collective past become an inspiration for new yet sound beginnings. The seed of tomorrow salutes the seed of yesteryear. So it says in this, it's suggested that the process of transfiguration, the presence of the greatest moments of the past, is called upon. As Moses and Elijah were invoked in Jesus' transfiguration, the seed of the new day depends upon the seed of yesteryear for an experience of the cyclic continuity of spirit. This is the basis for the institutionalized ideal of apostolic succession, the Gurampara, an uninterrupted chain of gurus in Indian tradition. I don't really know what that had to do with it, but transfiguration is actually a shamanic practice of kind of reorganizing all your molecules to create something new, which kind of feels a bit like the soup.
Right, exactly. And we will, they only talked about male figures, but we have to remember that there are female figures, and we've talked about it, of course, in the history,
Yeah.
that we have a history of women as well as men and all people, not just, this just wasn't a society built on one type or one thing. And so realizing that, this is a group effort, but yes, changing our molecules, creating a delicious soup
Mm-hmm.
from what has been
Yeah.
and what will become,
And the
based on
ingredients that we already have.
right, based on our focus, desire, and willingness to take action to bring this about. All is possible.
So Dane Rudhyar was an amazing astrologer, and we kind of read these from his interpretations of the Sabian symbols. I kind of think it's about time some of them were rewritten, personally. For the new paradigm, and not just about women either, but about the spectrum of humanity. So
Balance, right? Just when you're making a soup, there's a balance that has to happen with the ingredients, with the savoriness, the saltiness, the liquidity, all of those things. And so that's what we need to focus on. And I think that's what this is about. It's about, if you think about your life as being you are the creator of your own delicious soup, with all the things that you have in your life and that you want, how would you create that soup?
awesome. So Jen, how can people find you?
So they can find me on my website, jenduchenne.com, JENDUCHENE. I have the cards there, classes, readings available there. I have a new Akashic class coming up in May, I believe, first level, as well as I'm starting classes for the Illuminating Journey cards. The first class will be on the 25th of April or something like that weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also on Facebook. I have a group, Akashic Swan Guidance. I do weekly videos on YouTube, Akashic Swan Guidance, or Jen Duchenne Akashic Swan Guidance. I have a Facebook page, and you can just find me everywhere, Jen Duchenne.
Same with me, Louise Eddington. You can just find my Google my name, but my website is louiseeddington.com, LouiseEddington.com. My Facebook page is Cosmic Owl Astrology, Louise Eddington. Cosmic Owl Astrology on Instagram, on YouTube. I have a Cosmic Owl Astrology cafe. On my website, you can find my books, you can find how to book consultations with me, and also a link to my newly revamped membership, which is called Venus Enchantment, where we are going to actually work with the Venus cycle over months, taking us through all the gates of the Venus journey through personal growth, because Venus keeps telling me this is what I've got to do. enchant everybody with her magic. So I'm going to. So you can find a link to that if you want to check that out as well. And so again, don't forget we have our swag and we have a Patreon, patreon.com/weirdly magical. And just come follow us and leave us reviews on iTunes. On iTunes, if you could, we've got quite a lot of great reviews now. And on our Facebook page, we appreciate any comments, likes, reviews, anything. It all helps us move this forward. So for now, it's goodbye from Lou.
And goodbye from Jen.